Hangout on Air is now live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Talking About Survivor. I am Christiana Ellis.
And I am Mike Mateen, and I am on puppy duty, so I may seem a little distracted. Like I may get up every once in a while Chris is talking and walking.
Yeah, we're all on slightly different schedules this week for a variety of reasons, and so wow, we're getting dynamic. See, the trick here is that while I'm talking, it's showing me and not you, even though Mike is doing a travelogue here. I've switched over to so we can see his screen as he's walking along, showing off the roof of the ceiling of his new place. Newish, yep. I guess you've been there a little while now.
Yep.
All right. So we're here tonight to talk about Survivor Kaoh Rong, Episode 3. Getting into the season for real now. And the first two episodes are.
Well, we just got a different tribe, so it's like someone else had to do something.
That was nice, just because although it's occasionally interesting to have one tribe just dwindle into nothing, and then eventually have to be saved by a mix-up or something. It just went ahead and it's like, okay, good. Let's make some others have to work for it. Even though ultimately it was eagerness to get into playing the strategic part of the game that was the downfall of. So the squeaky noise, just if anyone is wondering, is a puppy toy on Mike's end this time. So I'm not going to be too judgmental about that. Oh, look.
This guy is squeaking the toy.
Oh, what a sweetie.
He is. He's a good boy. He just likes to play.
So big already.
Yeah, he gets big fast.
Certainly, there's been enough times on the podcast where Luna was barking or something that I'm in no position to judge on that sort of thing. Besides, cute puppy trumps a lot of things. But so... as I was just saying, our sort of losers of the week, Liz and Peter, ultimately kind of, I think a lot of their downfall was being a little too eager and to get into this part of the game and too overconfident of their position in it.
Overconfidence is an understatement. They didn't even anticipate that anything else. Like they just didn't even. They were so sure that they were okay. It was ridiculous.
Early in the episode, when they're in the water and they said we're playing like bosses right now, I laughed out loud because I'm like, you haven't had to do anything yet. What?
Yes, we know what we want to do, so we are in a great position.
Yeah,
other people might have plans.
This early in the game, acknowledging that you are in a 6-person tribe with 3 pairs in it, even if you make it go your way, that's not a great position to be in. A great position to be in would be to have a solid 4 and 2 outsiders.
Yep.
But that's not what they had, and they knew that that's not what they had. And so they were just too excited to be able to play with that situation, and they were too excited for that, and it resulted in them not being sufficiently careful, or let's say just self-aware.
Yep.
But in any case, when we start the episode, we're still back to the Braun tribe coming back from tribal council. We have Scott assuring Alicia, "Oh, I only voted for you because I knew for sure that Jennifer was going, and I promised not to vote for her." And he's making these big protestations of innocence, and it's just kind of funny because it's like a stage play, because he doesn't mean it, and she knows he doesn't mean it, and she knows he doesn't mean it. So it's like they're just going through the motions.
And I mean, what a terrible, like, for him to be like, "Oh, I promised I wouldn't vote for her." Like, she's like the second one out. Who cares?
Yeah. It was just, I think it was honestly dumb for him to make such a big deal about it. You know, you guys decided at the last minute to vote out Jennifer instead of Alicia, and it was going to be Alicia. What is the concern here? What is it that he is trying to make better? He just wants her to like him?
I'm not positive. Hold on. Sometimes silence is a...
Yes. From off camera. Yeah, see, my little dog is under my desk right now, so...
I had to figure out what he's doing, because last time he went silent, I called him over here and gave him a treat. So now he's going to hide in hopes that I will call him over and give him a treat. He is incredibly smart.
Yeah.
You're too smart for your own good, bud.
This is now welcome to talking about dogs and Survivor.
Yes. Well, 4-month-old puppies will do that.
Yeah.
No, I don't know why he did that. Like you said, I think he wanted her to like him. He didn't want her targeting him. He wanted to be able to use her still. Like, I think there was a lot of things going on in his mind, but none of them were. It was just a stupid thing to do.
Yeah. I think it maybe wasn't a terrible thing to try, but he was a little too pushy with it when it was clear that she wasn't buying it, and he kind of, I think, made it even worse by giving a lame excuse instead of just owning what it was, which is, yeah, look, we were going to vote for you. That's what we talked about doing. We decided at the last minute that it was going to be Jennifer instead. But look, you're still here. We're going to move forward. And, if you don't want to be the next to go, it's kind of on you to make it up to us. What are we apologizing to you for?
Yeah, well, what? That doesn't make any sense. So, sorry, I moved because he asked politely.
That's all right. I find it amusing is all that you're moving around. Those who are listening on the audio will just have to maybe check out the video version to see how Mike has a new background every 30 seconds or so here.
Well, he did. He asked politely to go outside, and now he is taking a giant. He's doing his business. Good boy.
All right.
So I let him out so he didn't do that in the house.
Great.
Right, but I agree. I was listening to everything you said. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that there's much more to say about that.
Yeah. Just so I don't forget by the end, we did have a piece of feedback from Mike K. And I'll just go ahead and read it now, although he covers a lot of things that we'll probably cover in this episode too. But he says, hi, Christiana and Mike, regarding my last feedback. I knew most of the facts, especially about big characters, big events, or early seasons off the top of my head, but I always research before commenting to make sure my memory is correct and to fill in some of the details. For example, I knew Tom Westman was in his early 40s when he won, but I had to look up that his exact age was 41. Just editorial insert here. I think we were fooled because Tom Westman, despite being 41, has kind of that Steve Martin early gray thing going on, I think, when he was on his first season. Anyway, back to the comment. Regarding the difficulty in reaching the key for the box holding the immunity idol. And then he reads the note, but we got so much more about the note and how that all worked in this episode. Then I'm going to skip over that part of the comment here because he's talking about stuff that we'll get into. And then he also has, I'm surprised, Mike, that you forgot that Uncle Cliff Robinson of the NBA, played on season 29 Kakayan and was the 5th player voted out. Mike is muted at the moment, but he'll come back.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
So did you have a comment on Cliff Robinson?
No, he's right. I just forgot.
Yep.
But it doesn't surprise me because I often forget what happened last season.
Yeah. So Mike K goes on to say, I enjoyed when you both talked about Jason saying in Tribal Council, the best part of this game is that it turns on the drop of a dime. where Jason combines two idioms at the drop of a hat and turn on a dime. However, it is somewhat amusing that the phrase "drop a dime" to his tribe mate NBA player Scott would mean make an assist.
That's correct.
Yeah. So that's yet another piece in the beautiful pastiche of idiom that Jason came up with in that tribal council.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the extent of my case comment. But thank you again for all that great information. And like I said, I skipped over some of the stuff that relates to how the idol is obtained, that we'll get into when that stuff happens in this episode.
Yes, they did a good. It came much more clear what was supposed to happen.
Yeah, definitely. So in any case, we didn't really get past Alicia and Scott yet. Alicia goes off to bitch about Scott to Sydney, and Sydney is kind of like, okay, you've decided that I'm the one that's on your side. All right, I'll play along. But then she's really kind of thinking, yeah, she thinks I'm like with her, but and then I think Scott talks about regretting the decision that they made, and at the same time that I think he might be regretting that just because of the drama that was a little bit self-created when they came back from tribal council. You know what I mean? It's like it's uncomfortable now, and that's what he's regretting. But it's also just kind of an indication, I think, of how Scott plays the game.
You can't surprise your tail. It's as smart as you. Sorry. I'm just watching. And then he down. Yeah. Right. No, I agree.
Yeah, so I think regretting the decision, it was kind of a last minute thing, but at some point with, like, especially this early in the game, you just have to move forward. Talking about, oh, I think we made the wrong decision. It's like, you're only 2 episodes in. You need to just power through this stuff at this point. You know, like it does you no good to regret it now.
Yeah, exactly.
So
it's been done. Like, move on. It's only the second person voted out.
Yeah. So in any case, we go over to the beauty tribe, and there's a little bit of discussion of them saving all the food scraps that none of them want to eat, like just like the little bits of the crab's head and shell and everything that they don't want. It's like, don't worry, save it for Ty, he'll eat it, which is kind of, on the one hand, you sort of superficially you could see that as almost like a little bit insulting or condescending, but on the other hand, it's kind of a recognition of, well, okay, we don't want it, but don't throw it out because he might be interested. They recognize that he is willing to kind of go after some of that stuff more than they are. So rather than just throw it away, they decide to give him the option.
Exactly. I thought that was nice of them.
Yeah. So he goes idol hunting again, and this time he decides to make a tie together sticks to get up and reach the thing, which, now that we get another look at the clue, it clearly tells you you're supposed to do. So my theory is the only reason he tried climbing the tree the last time was because he was in such a hurry and he felt like he didn't have time to try to make something, go around and look for long sticks to tie together. So he was hoping that maybe if he could just climb the tree real quick, he could just get it and not have to deal with that. That's the only explanation that makes sense to me, because the drawing on the clue clearly shows tying sticks together and reaching them up to the thing.
Right. And we saw not only did that work for him, but that the other tribe, when they found the clue, that was their first maneuver, was to do exactly what the clue said and tie sticks together and retrieve. Yeah.
And funny, too, that neither of them ended up using the actual real little tool. Ty because he lost it, and Jason because he wasn't the one that had the tool. So that whole idol search on the Braun tribe was just kind of crazy.
Yes.
So in any case, though, Ty he gets it. He lost the tool, can't find it, has to make one with the stick, but he gets it, and he kisses the tree twice. I just especially noticed twice because it's one thing to just kind of do that sort of exuberant gesture, but he kind of goes back in and does a second one, which just kind of, it just put like a slightly different flavor on it to me.
Yes. It was like not just thanks. It was much more affectionate.
Yeah.
Than just, hey, thank you for the idol. It's like
it was
hey.
like a sincere thank you to the tree as opposed to like a gesture for effect.
Yes.
Which I was amused by. So in any case, he gets the key. He needs to follow the map to the treasure. He does, although I guess he knew where it was because the box is just back where he got the tool. I think that's where it was. Either that or it was just unclear on screen because later it seemed like never mind. So in any case, he gets the idol, and we get the rules explaining the super idol, which we talked a little bit about last time as a spoiler sort of comment, which is fine. I don't think that was a big deal. Spoil that, but it's still a cool idea. And then meanwhile, now we switch over to the Brain Tribe, and we have Joe doing ab workouts out on the raft, while Peter and Liz joke about it. And I had slightly mixed feelings about his ab workout, because on the one hand, he's clearly just got a routine and he wants to do it, and it's kind of probably as much for his own sort of just mental stability to kind of keep up with routines where he can. But also it's probably part of a whole thing where he does it for like flexibility, it stretches out and stuff like that too, right? And it's just kind of his routine. So to judge him for that is, not necessarily the best thing. But also at the same time, there is an element of, he's doing like crunches and stuff. So it's like when they're all not eating very much and conserving energy is kind of a priority, it does seem like that's maybe not the best use of his, tablespoon of rice calories.
Yeah. I agree with you. It doesn't seem like it's necessary to do that right now, because you're conserving your energy and using it. But like you said, there's mixed feelings because if that's part of his routine, maybe that calms him and prepares him. Maybe there's a mental thing to doing his routine that actually makes him perform better. Yeah,
like if he's just used to, he always does kind of the same, little, half an hour worth of whatever, with stretches and push-ups and crunches, and he just like, that's what he does, and he would feel weird not to do it. Why not?
Yeah.
But it's
not like he was going for a run. It's not a heavy calorie burning exercise. It's a strength training thing, which I think mixed feelings is a good way to put it.
Well, there's also probably just the element that something that it's easy for us watching the show to forget about is that they have a lot of time where they're probably just bored and looking for stuff to do, anything. And so, if he's just kind of like, I don't know what to do, I'm just hanging out. Well, sure, here, let's do this.
Yeah, if that's what he does when he's bored in real life, maybe that's a good thing.
They don't have TV, they don't have books, whatever it is that he might otherwise do.
We don't have Mowgli.
Mowgli? Mowgli is your dog's name. Just to clarify for everyone. Yeah. But in any case, Peter and Liz are hanging out in the water, watching him do his go after his abs, and they're kind of joking about it. And they kind of lay out for us the dynamic that we hadn't really seen much of yet, which is that there's the 6 players consist of 3 pairs. There's Debbie and Joe, the 2 oldest, and are both kind of one of these things are not like the others. Well, it's two in this case. And so they're one pair. Then there's Neil and Aubrey, who are kind of a pair. And then there's Peter and Liz, who bond through their mutual narcissism. Or at least that's how the others would describe it.
Right. And their assumption is because Debbie and Joe are so obviously like different that, well, that's so easy. That makes sense. That's the target.
Yeah, except that it's almost like they start there and then get bored with the idea of doing the obvious thing. And I think that's why they start talking about going after Neil.
Yes, which was probably their big mistake.
Yeah. So it's just kind of because in particular, what it means is that if they're going to go after one pair or the other, they need the corresponding pair to side with them in doing it.
Yep.
So they must have concluded, well, Debbie and Joe are the weirdest and thus the most obvious to be targets, and so they will be most reliable because they'll be dependent on us. Like, they'll want to please us so they can stay in the game. And it's like that seemed to be their attitude, and yet that dynamic was never actually established with Joe and Debbie. And in particular, what we see from Debbie is that is not her attitude at all. She is, on the one hand, aware of her and Joe being, a little bit outside of the other four in the respect of being older, but she is actively, like, she's proactive about it. She's like, oh, good, you guys are underestimating me? Perfect. That's just how I want it. I'm going to do my thing while you guys all look somewhere else.
Yeah, I was pretty pleased with her gameplay.
Yeah, me too. And I was definitely not pleased, or I was pleased in a mocking way with the gameplay of Liz and Peter sitting there in the water saying, we're playing like bosses right now. And I'm just like, oh, you have a plan that has not been tested to the slightest yet. And so it's just, they were a little too in love with their own ideas.
Yes, like you said, narcissistic is probably a good way to describe them.
Well, that's certainly the word that a couple of people used to describe Peter, at least. Liz kind of seems like she got swept up in that. It's not as clear if she's really like that or if she's just with him. You know what I mean? But certainly she's giving him the same energy back that he's giving out to her. But Debbie feels like she wants to split up that pair, but Peter's probably better for helping with challenges, so maybe it should be Liz to go first. So she first approaches Joe to make sure he's on board, that they're going to enlist Neil and Aubrey. We didn't actually see much of that. Mostly what we see is her talking in confessional about having talked to Joe. But then she just has all sorts of metaphors. The bomb doors are open, prepare to fire. And I couldn't help but think, like, you don't fire through the bomb doors, but okay. Okay, all right, it's a metaphor. I'll leave it alone. But at the same time, she's kind of obnoxious in an endearing way, I find. Okay, I've lost my notes. Okay, so that's when we switch over to the beauty tribe, and the time has come to kill a chicken. Everyone else has kind of decided. Ty is very kind of opposed to doing this, to killing the chicken, but at the same time, he's not going to be too pushy about it. And in particular, really puts himself in the center of the whole process. Like, he wants to be involved. Like, if he's going to be part of it, he's not going to like pretend. He's not going to make everybody else feel like he's off by himself and they're having to do it against his wishes. You know, he's being a team player about it, but he also kind of wants to, like, if this is going to happen, he wants to try to have it happen as humanely as possible. And so he's really emotional about it, and it bums him out. And we get this whole sequence where everyone is really sensitive about it, except for Nick, who declares, "You don't need emotions out here. You just need to seem like you have emotions."
Yeah, Nick seems like a real douche.
Yeah. Well, and it was just one of those things where my first thought when he said that is like, yeah, and you're not doing a very good job of seeming like you have emotions right now.
Yeah, like you're clearly
seeming like it is probably sufficient if you actually succeed at it.
Right, like he's clearly not like taking the temperature of the tribe, which is that they are respecting Ty, you know?
Yeah.
And they are respecting the fact that he doesn't want this to happen, but he is not going to make a scene. And in fact, isn't even going to pout. He's going to participate to show them that he supports the tribe decision. He supports what's right. He's going to make the statement that this is emotional to me, and everyone is supporting him. Like, yeah, at least fake like you're supporting him.
Yeah.
You know?
I will say that despite Ty making an effort in those regards, I couldn't help but feel a little bit like if I was there and I wanted some chicken, I would resent a little bit that he made it such a sad thing. You know what I mean? It's like...
Well, and that's what I'm saying. I'm sure others did resent that a little bit, but
yeah.
They knew that the dynamic would be like, to be a tribe, we are going to support Ty and allow him this, even if it's frustrating to us.
Right. We can respect his emotions about it since he didn't try to stop us from doing it. So we can allow him to be sad just as he allowed us to have the chicken.
Right. Even if deep down it is not our preference for how it went down, that's just part of the deal, you know?
Yeah. But I think Nick was feeling that resentment angle in the sense of like he didn't really even seem sad for Ty, but he seemed annoyed that the energy of the camp was brought down by it.
Yes.
And so Anna in particular reads that and kind of says, yuck. But at the same time, what we learn is that on the beauty tribe, and this is, another tribe that we haven't had a lot of the strategy from yet, but the three girls on the beauty tribe are apparently really close. And so they're all together and they approach Caleb to join them in getting rid of Nick first if they end up having to go to tribal council. And he seems on board, or at least willing to listen. Yeah. You would probably be open to other options if they were also available, but in any case, now we switch back over to idol hunting at the Braun tribe, and poor Alicia. This is where she learns to her sorrow that Sydney is not really with her. And in kind of a heartbreaking, awkward way, in the sense of she finds the clue, immediately tells Sydney about it, and Sydney promptly runs off and tells everybody else. And I felt bad for her because I'm not like a super fan of Alicia or anything, but I did feel sympathy for her. Sure.
Yeah, like that was just
I did appreciate her doing a video game item victory music when she held up the clue. She kind of went ta da 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 da. I don't know if she did the exact Final Fantasy thing, but it's kind of the Legend of Zelda, like holding up, oh, you got the boomerang.
Yep.
But in any case, Sydney sends, not like the first thing she does actually is to send Alicia off to get a tool to help her dig, and then tries to do a little bit of looking on her own without Alicia, hoping that maybe she can find it by herself. But then when it becomes clear that it's more complicated than that, she goes and enlists Scott and Jason so they can just make sure that Alicia doesn't get it.
Yes.
And so now everybody's running all over the place. And how sad and awkward was it when we see Scott and Jason making the thing to get the key, taking the key over to open the box, and Alicia's just standing there scowling at them like, "That was supposed to mean bye, idol. You guys are mean." And they're just like, I don't recall ever having an idol search work quite like that before, where she is just, I think just literally physically intimidated by them.
Yeah. It was, she had nothing that she could do. Like, what was she going to fight them? Like, they were so aggressive that. Like,
they did not even have to actually be threatening. So, like, they weren't threatening. They weren't, they were aggressive maybe, but not like in a, like, we're going to hit you if you don't get out of our way. But they didn't have to be. They're two big guys, and she's scrawny by comparison,
They were aggressive in the way that, like, they, you talk about, like, how you can if you walk into somewhere with confidence, even if you're not supposed to be there, like, you can get away with a lot. Like, they do this stuff, like, around the Super Bowl or other things sometimes where they test the security. And they show how someone, like, walks into the venue, like, a week ahead of time with confidence, they can get all around, like, within the venue. Like, it's a pretty common human trait. Like, portraying that confidence, and that's why I say aggressive. It's not aggressive in that, like, I'm going to hit you. It's just this sort of moving swiftly and assuredly. If you're a little bit timid, there's nothing, you just automatically let them go,
Yeah. So that had to be really hard for Alicia to be in that position, because just think how quickly, like, not that she was in a great position before all that, but just in a rapid space of just like maybe an hour, she goes from finding a clue to discovering that the one ally she thought she had is actually not with her at all, and having everybody else find the idol that she thought was going to be hers right in front of her, like, just almost rubbing her face in it.
Yeah, it felt very, what's his name, Milton in Office Space? The stapler guy?
Oh, yeah. I guess, what, like Alicia was?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. See, for some reason, I thought, like, you were saying they were being like Milton in that.
No, they were being like the other characters in Office Space.
Yeah.
The bosses and the Bobs.
Yeah, we're gonna need you to move your desk down to the base.
That's my stapler. That's my idol clue. That's my idol.
I was gonna.
Sure it is.
I was gonna make it. I was gonna climb the tree. Yeah.
Yeah. It's now our idol clue, and so you're gonna have to just go back to the camp, because this is now. But that I found the idol clue.
Yeah. Maybe she'll burn the camp down.
I honestly wouldn't put that past her.
Well, at this point, she like, all she has to hope for now is that there's a tribe swap or something, right? I mean, she's just hopefully that maybe they can win at least another challenge or two until there's a swap, and hopes she gets a better mix.
Yep. God, your dog is messing up this podcast.
It's funny because she's doing the most half-hearted bark right now. Like, she's lying on her side and she's not even picking her head up to bark right now.
She's just barking because Someone walked by. I'm
Yeah,
supposed.
she heard a noise and she just like, oh, I'm kind of tired. I don't want to get up, but can't let them just go by. I have to bark. Fine, bark, bark. Anyway, though, poor Alicia. So now we're at the challenge, and I loved this challenge. I feel like if we've seen, like, getting the ball maze thing, I feel like they've had a version of that, but I don't know if it had the balance beam element before. And I don't know if they've done the rice bag thing quite like this before, but just all of these pieces together felt really fresh to me.
Yeah, it felt like, I think we've said this numerous times on this podcast, like our favorite challenges right now are where they take the elements of stuff we liked and they remix them basically into a new challenge. Like this was a new challenge. We've seen them have to stuff things through holes. Have we had to see them stuff wet rice? No. We've seen them have to do the hand balancing and guiding thing. Have we seen it while they're on a balance beam? No. Have we seen it, with that particular mechanism? Probably not. It's all, there's nothing new, but it's all new.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes it cool. Like, yeah. I liked it too. I love when they really hit that.
And I want to go ahead and just briefly lecture the Brains tribe for being the one tribe that let their bags get completely submerged in water. The other two tribes just instinctively said, yeah, let's try to keep these dry. But then there was a long shot where at least two out of the three rice bags for the Brain tribe, they let them get completely submerged. And I'm just thinking, that's why you guys fell so far behind pushing it through the hole.
Yeah, because they couldn't.
Dumb fault.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, tell yourself all you want about losing the challenge by only seconds. You guys should have been way further ahead than that. And it's your own dumb fault for not holding the rice up.
Yes, because just like when it goes in your stomach, like the rice is expanding. So now all of a sudden the bag, you have to fit through that hole.
It's going to be stuck together and clumping.
Yeah, it's clumping and expanding and getting larger than it was before. Like now all of a sudden the mass inside the bag is different. Yeah.
It was just dumb. And so for them to be the one tribe that did that, oh boy. Anyway, though, I also thought it was an interesting choice to have, so they have the first place version and the second place version. Instead of having like a really good comfort package and then a less good comfort package, having the second thing be the personal items, which they haven't really done anything with the personal items in a while. And so reintroducing that and making it a choice was kind of interesting. But the problem with it, I found, was that because the tribe that gets those is not going to tribal council, we don't ever see anything with them doing anything with it. So there's, like, other than a brief moment of seeing Jason with the Good Luck Bear Care Bear, like, what, all of that was a non-entity for us. We didn't see any of that.
Yes, I agree with that. I felt that same way. The other thing that I felt was, like, clearly that's the consolation prize. Like, no one is going to choose that over the comfort. Like, so
it's not like it's the letters from home once they're 3 weeks in.
Right. So the fact that they made it a choice for the winning tribe was like, okay, that just seemed like a unnecessary, like, addition to it. Like, no one's choosing. Like, that's not going to happen. Yeah.
I feel like a better choice would have been something like comfort in the form of blankets and tarps and pillows and stuff, or maybe food, like a one-time feast thing, or even just like cooking supplies, like spices and stuff. Like, you want like pillows and tarps, or do you want spices and cookware?
Yeah, something where the choice is actually, like, interesting, where there's a debate and a consideration and a trade-off. There's no trade-off here. Like, your personal items don't really, I mean, they help you, I guess, but they don't.
Well, especially this early in the game, they haven't really had time to miss anyone that strongly yet. Again, it's the reason they do the family visits or the letters from home when you're in the last third of the season is because that's when people are really feeling homesick.
Right.
But anyway, we might get a little bit of that next week, but I almost hope we don't, just because it's like, let's just keep things moving forward. But in that event, it just means the whole thing is wasted a little bit. But then again, I suppose compared to most seasons where they just don't enter into anything at all, we just never hear about them at all. I suppose it's better than that. I don't know. Still felt weird.
Oh, well.
Yeah. But in any case, I thought it was a great challenge, and it was another one where even though the Beauty Tribe got first by a fair amount, the coming down to who's going to be second was pretty tense, and we get a blurred mouth on Debbie, as she says, by 3 bleeping seconds.
Yep.
I'm a little bit surprised to have turned around on Debbie somewhat, just because I felt like last time, or the first 2 episodes, I felt a little bit too much like, well, she's just too weird. She's just not going to fit in, and she's going to get voted out as a result. But I like that she kind of owns her weirdness and is really seeking to play her own style of game, despite what anyone else is thinking about her. She
is much more self-aware than I thought she was.
Mm-hmm.
Not just of her own weirdness, but of how people perceive her weirdness.
Mm-hmm.
She's not 100% self-aware. That is clear, but she is much more than I thought. So
yeah. But so in any case, we had Beauty win. They take the comfort items, and then Braun just barely gets second place and take the emotional items. And as previously mentioned, the only one we saw was Jason has the Good Luck Bear, Care Bear. Although he just calls it a teddy bear. So there was a part of me, and this was a part of me that I was a little bit surprised to find rearing its head in that moment, which was, it's not just a teddy bear, it's Good Luck Bear, Care Bear. You have to, you don't care about that character. Someone probably just gave that to you because it has a 4-leaf clover on it. It's like, oh yeah, good luck. And I'm like, that makes me mad. I wanted that character to have meaning to him in some way.
I didn't feel as strongly, but I understand.
Well, and it's also possible I jumped to conclusions, because when he called it a teddy bear, it was in the context of sort of admitting that other people would be surprised that it's him that has a teddy bear. And so he might have just been phrasing it as as someone else might say it. You know what I mean? Like, maybe if the confessional went longer, he would have
said oh, and here's Jason's teddy bear, and they were like, oh, a teddy bear? Yes, it's my teddy bear. I feel like I thought there was some question about it ahead of time.
When we see him grabbing it, I didn't feel like there was an exchange, but we had a little bit of a voiceover that sounded like it was Jason from a confessional saying, yep, there's the big guy getting the teddy bear. Kind of like he's acknowledging that people would think that's weird. But I think that was really all. And that was the line that I kind of rubbed me the wrong way, because I felt like it's not just a teddy bear. But I don't know. Again, I think I haven't thought about the Care Bears in a long time, but I was just a little bit surprised to find that there was a long covered over but still there well of emotion surrounding the Care Bears. Anyway.
Onward.
So the Brain Tribe is now going to have to go to their first tribal council. And we immediately go back to their camp with Liz feeling pretty pleased with herself that finally they get to play. And I'm just going,
But she didn't really play. Or she did. poorly.
She and Peter thought they had their plan and that they were going for it. So, it wasn't highly involved, but they thought that they had come up with a plan and they were carrying it out. At the same time, like, on the one hand, I feel like I get the impulse. Like, getting to be on Survivor, I mean, part of the things that are fun about Survivor is all the strategy and the scheming and stuff like that. I mean, so it makes sense that people would feel almost impatient to do that stuff. But I think the problem is it is an impatience, because if you can approach it rationally, like when you're not there on the island, you recognize that stuff will come. You don't have to force it early.
And we've seen it time and time again when they force it early and it causes problems.
Yeah. So in any case, the plan, and another part of the plan that I thought was interesting was that they decided that all the, like, in terms of trying to split the vote to flush any potential idol, that they wanted to keep the pairs voting with each other. And I wasn't 100% sure why that makes more sense than trying to split it up a little bit, because it almost encourages the sort of the silo effect. You know what I mean? Of like, okay, Debbie and Joe, you guys vote for Neil, and Peter and I are going to vote for Aubrey. It almost feels more like to Joe and Debbie, wait, you guys are telling us to do one thing and you're going to go do something else. How do we know we can trust you? As opposed to if you you mixed it up, it would feel more like you're in it together instead of your pair is being used by our pair.
Right. Well, and what this made me think of is, you know what, at some point, especially early in the game, the risk reward of flushing the idol, sometimes you just have to roll the dice and just say, you know what,
Mm-hmm.
we need to vote the way we need to vote, assuming there's no idol. And if someone plays an idol, fair play.
Mm-hmm.
Kudos to them, and I'll walk away.
Yeah.
You know, just sometimes you have to be willing to put that out there. And that, not that that would have solved the situation, but it certainly would have helped if there wasn't, like you said, like it was my take on the whole, oh, well, we're doing this, and then we're saying we're doing this, but we're really doing this, and you're saying this, and you're doing this. And it's like, no. We're the 4. They're the 2. We're voting that one.
Mm-hmm.
Are we all good? And then you get a better read.
Yeah.
On people. If they're like, oh, yeah, I mean, I think we could probably maybe do that. Then you're like, okay. Or if they're like, yeah, no, we're all good. It's just, at some point, which is part of the fun of it. Like, I love the fact that the idol is in there and people are just so overly concerned with it that they make these intricate plans that we know are unnecessary. But what it made me realize, because I've always said that, like, oh, well, you didn't need to do that because they didn't have the idol. And it's like, oh, well, they didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, this one, you think, you know what? Sometimes you just got to roll the dice that they don't have it, because it's just better.
I think that's true in some cases, but I think this might almost be one of the occasions where it makes more sense, just because the 3 pairs did seem so clear that you weren't going to have Aubrey and Neil voting against each other. You weren't going to have Joe and Debbie voting against each other. You weren't going to have Liz and Peter voting against each other. And so if that's the case, and you can sort of treat them as 3 double pieces instead of 6 single pieces, it really doesn't hurt as much to split into 2 pairs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right. Yes.
Because you have less concern that one person is going to flip and screw everything up.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because, if there's only, if you have your 4 and you go 2 and 2, there's only 2 other people left. So no matter what they do, they can't have as many votes as you're splitting. Now, if one person was going to switch and betray you and switch over to that side, then that would be 3 against 2 and 1. And that would screw it up. But if you're pretty sure that that's not going to happen, and that I think you could be more sure that that's not going to happen than you can be sure that the pair is with you in the first place. It's complicated. I mean, I feel like that's why this example felt a little bit different for me. I agree in principle that I think sometimes they split the vote in order to flush an idol out of an excess of caution. And it makes it more complicated for themselves when forging ahead boldly might have been the better solution.
Right. And this, I'm going on no research here, but if I remember, like, the feeling I got from, again, Boston Rob, who we always have to admire as one of the better players in this game ever,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that tended to be how he rallied people more. Like, I don't feel like there was a lot of vote splitting with him. Like, I think that
Mm-hmm.
it was part of the way he maneuvered was the rallying behind, like, the 4, and if you aren't part of the 4 and you go do something else, then, oh man, that's not going to work out well for you, and he never said it like that.
Yeah.
It was always like, this is, you wanted to vote with him because you felt like if you didn't, then you would be in trouble, know? And he had that charisma that helped it, but that seemed to be part of the deal. Speaking of the theme that we've been talking about of just sort of forging ahead with confidence, that felt like how he worked. Like, well, why would you even want to consider other options? Let's just keep moving ahead, and be like, all right, yeah, okay, that's not me,
Yeah. So in any case, we have the 3 pairs, and so our real middle pair is Debbie and Joe, in the sense that Liz and Peter think, oh, Debbie and Joe will be grateful that we're bringing them into our plan to get rid of Neil instead of targeting one of them. And that was the mistake that Liz and Peter made. Whereas really, Joe and Debbie are hearing that plan and thinking, you know what? We could do that, or we could go over with Aubrey and Neil and vote out one of you. So I like, again, this is where Debbie's kind of proactive nature sought out a better deal than the one they were offered. She decided she would rather work with Neil and Aubrey. And in particular, Aubrey was very receptive to this plan because she really doesn't like Peter, especially since Peter is trying to move all of the pieces on the board at once. You know what I mean? So it's like, not only does he have his plan with Joe and Debbie, but he needs to make sure that Neil and Aubrey think that they're actually part of the plan that's doing this whatever. And, well, okay, I don't want to be dismissive. The plan was to make Neil and Aubrey think that it was going to be either Joe or Debbie. But in trying to get her to do what he wanted, she felt very bullied by him. He was not, so she describes it as him lacking emotional intelligence, which was an interesting way to put it, just since Probst used that exact phrase later, and it became like a thing. But in any case, so describing him as lacking emotional intelligence, I think, what we've kind of talked about already is the idea of reading the room, or, accurately gauging how receptive the other person is to what you're saying. And apparently, Peter's not good at that, despite as he says in the tribal council, well, he's an ER doctor, so he's a specialist in social interaction. And I was just like, really? That's what you think? Because emergency doctors don't exactly have a reputation in the outside world for being super charismatic, charming individuals.
No.
I mean, I don't want to say that an ER doctor couldn't be a great, charming person, but that's not the reputation. It's practically a stereotype that they're kind of cold and analytical and don't get involved emotionally. Now, it's true, he's probably imagining all the parts where he has to talk to family members and get, calm down people who are scared and stuff like that. And that's real. I mean, but it's also very heightened in a very different emotional context than almost any other social interaction in the world.
Yes.
So he's a specialist, to be sure, in the sense that he is well trained in a very specialized field of social interaction.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much in the rest of it, apparently. That was another moment where I kind of just laughed when he said that with no irony. But in any case, that was at Tribal Council.
Yeah, I mean, he said a lot of things with no irony where you're like,
yeah,
what?
we get what some of the other people like Debbie and Aubrey were saying about him. We can kind of see that in him.
Right. To the point where that comment at Tribal Council is not like so out of character.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, oh yeah, all right, that's weird, but yeah, that's you.
Well, and he did a couple of other dumb things at the Tribal Council too, which I think we might as well go ahead and get to that. My last note before going to Tribal Council was just that there's a lot of moving pieces here. You've got the three main pairs, but they kind of, in a way, all three of them are kind of thinking of themselves as the middle, which in a way, it almost is, right?
Yeah.
But in any case, we get to Tribal Council and Peter immediately lays out the three pairs, which, okay, fine. It seems like they're all kind of aware of that. He's kind of not speaking any hidden truths there. And I liked, even though we haven't had a lot from Neil yet, I liked his observation that all of them think that they're the one that has it all figured out.
Yep.
That was kind of, we talk about self-awareness. I think that showed it too, because on the one hand, we know that, he was kind of being targeted by some of the others, but he's the one that, that's what Liz and Peter lacked, is the realization that everybody else also has a plan and also thinks that they're the one that has the plan that's going to go forward.
Yep.
That's something we see a lot in this game, where people come up with this master scheme and seem to forget that the other player gets a turn too.
Yeah, we've talked about that a lot on this, the game theory.
Yeah. Well, because it's a theme. I think it's something that you get smart people making that mistake in this game. Yeah,
which baffles me. Like, I feel like you should know game theory. Like, you should know this is like, that's the prisoner's dilemma. Like, you have to understand that the other person has an impact on this, and you have to gauge their reaction to your choice, or what they might choose. Yeah.
So there's discussion of there being multiple plans in place, and then Peter just going like, well, it's not your plan, it's going to win. And I'm just like, what are you doing, man? Like, I mean, it's not as bad as Jennifer last week or anything, but it's just like, why not just have everybody talk in the open about who they're going to vote for then? I mean, it's like, what is that trying to accomplish?
Right. And it seemed like that right there was when I really felt like, not that I didn't already have that feeling building of him having no awareness of how this game works, But that right there, to be so dismissive and be like, well, it's not your plan.
Yeah.
Have you even considered what his plan might be?
Yeah. You don't know what his plan was.
You have no idea.
Yeah. Well, and then I think Debbie's response to him doing that was actually my favorite line from her in the episode, which was just a very diplomatic, but with just a little hint of a smile that we can see, where she's going, well, good for him for throwing it all out there. She's just going like, all right, well, okay, good for him.
Yeah.
And just, it was, despite understanding the excitement that someone would feel being there in the thick of it, finally playing Survivor, as it must feel like there, it's a little distasteful when someone seems so eager to vote someone out, especially when he had only moments before tried to make the claim, oh, I like all these people.
Yeah.
But I'm in a hurry to send that person home and ruin their dreams. Yeah. So anyway, I enjoyed Neil pretending to look around at his bag when Prost asked about idols. Because why not? He knows from Debbie that they think he might have one. Why not stoke that fire a little bit?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's great. But it was just this extra little thing that shows that he's thinking, because, he didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
But so in any case, we get the votes. The first 2 votes are for Aubrey, and then 2 votes for Pete. And at that point, I don't think Pete or Liz were too scared, because they were figuring, okay, well, our pair figured it out, but it's going to be fine anyway, because we have 4 against them. But then when the other 2 votes were for Liz, getting ready to do this second vote when they can't participate in the second vote, the still of Liz with her hand on Pete's knee, looking just stunned and terrified, and him just looking kind of sheepish, was just kind of like, yeah, you guys, you did it.
Did it to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it sucked for Liz. I would have rather Pete have gone home, but
Yeah, I agree, but I think it was just the whole element of he is probably better at helping with challenges, but
he is. And they had those other mild annoyances with her that we saw that like Debbie in particular felt like she was, book learned but not street learned, and that kind of bothered Debbie. And if Debbie was sort of behind the scenes orchestrating this, you can see like there was enough pieces that it made sense. But
yeah, I'm with you though, that I think my preference would have been for Pete to go. I did enjoy, after Liz left, that in his sort of closing words that Probst rubbed in the emotional intelligence and social cues bit, because that had been a theme throughout the tribal council, and then it was shown that the guy who made a big deal about being good at that had misread the situation entirely, and just like, well, just goes to show that the game is all about emotional intelligence and social cues. And I was just like, oh, Prost, you're the best.
I mean, he is. He's all
so
of
good.
it.
Yeah.
So anyway,
next time, got serious stuff. Looks like someone gets choppered out. Seems to be dehydration. We see some shots that are almost certainly fake out shots of Ty looking really upset, but who knows what's going on there. Someone is getting an IV, but I couldn't tell whose arm it was.
Yep. We'll see in 2 days.
Yeah. Liz's final words were kind of hilariously analytical, I thought. But I guess that's just how she processes things. But it's just saying, well, the numbers didn't lie, but the people did. And I'm like, yeah, that's how it works.
Yep. Yep.
You know? But at the same time, she is absolutely not wrong. That is exactly what happened. The numbers broke down exactly the way she thought, except that the names were in different places because people lied about it. But other than that, the plan worked perfectly. You had 4 people who split their votes 2 ways in order to flush any potential idol, and then once in the second vote, they picked who they wanted to go. That was exactly her plan, and it was carried out flawlessly, except for the flaw of her being the one to go instead of Neil.
Yep.
Which is a big flaw, but again, wasn't the numbers. The numbers worked.
The numbers worked.
Yeah. All right. Well, so I think that probably does it for this episode. Thank you, everybody, for listening and or watching. We hope to be back on a more normal schedule for the next episode.
For me, we'll be back on the normal schedules.
Yep. So I will be talking to you probably later this week then for Survivor Kaoh Rong episode 4. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.